from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. We are feeling in a particularly good mood today, aren't we, Mickey and Aurora? Oh, the joys of babysitters, the joys of babysitters. One could just cuddle them forever. But since that would annoy Hollander heartbreak, I am going to plunge right in with this. Lady C, I know you're a fashionista, but I'd be shocked if you said you liked Catherine's BAFTA gloves. She looks like she's about to give someone a rectal examination. Too much. The paired black simplicity of just the dress and her stunning looks would have been more than adequate. As the Harkles are a little quieter of late, my question today is about the BAFTAs. What was your favourite film? Is there a specific genre that you enjoy? As always, love the show. All the best to the boys and fur babies. Dermot from Dublin. Dermot from Dublin. I love it. Well, I know a lot of people thought that, in fact, Catherine looked good. I agree with you. I thought those black gloves were a terrible mistake with the dress that she wore. You know, you need to have a degree of synchronicity, and things sort of have to somehow go together. They have to make sense, really. In life, everything has to make sense. If it doesn't quite make sense, that means it's off. One-shoulder dresses are very evocative of Grecian, ancient Grecian costume. It is virtually impossible to have a one-shoulder dress and wear any gloves with it that would look as if they went. They don't go. They jar. Any gloves she wore would have been wrong. But to wear those very almost to the armpit gloves in black on the absolute border of the dress, no. I thought it was a terrible, terrible mistake. She would have been perfect had she left them off. Gloves are tricky. Not everything that you wear can you wear gloves with. And there are varying lengths of gloves to wear with varying dresses. I just make that point for what it's worth. Now, insofar as the BAFTAs are concerned, my dear, I was at something infinitely superior in terms of entertainment and in terms of edification. I was at the Ballet Gala at the Coliseum. I'm going to post a picture of it afterwards. Oh, it was absolutely wonderful. We started out with the Ballet Gala at the Coliseum, where they had the most wonderful feast of classical and modern dance intermingled, with some of the finest ballet dancers in the world. They came from literally all over the world. They were, by and large, you could tell most of them were Russian trained, because the reality is The only great ballet companies in the world are still and have always been the Mariinsky, which used to be called the Kirov, and the Bolshoi. The Russian technique is totally different. I know this because I was even given a tour of the Vaganova school, which in St. Petersburg is where the dancers are taught from they're small. And they have a radically different technique from anything that we are taught in the West, which is why they are so superb. Well, there were no dancers directly from Russia for obvious reasons, but it is ballet and the Russian influence was there. And you could tell as soon as a dancer stepped out onto the stage whether he or she had been trained in the Russian tradition and if he or she had been streets ahead of everyone else. And they ended with one of my favorite pieces of ballet music from Le Corsaire. I first saw Farouk Ruzimatov, the great dancer, with the then Kirov, as it was called. And I think it was 85 or 86, might have been 87, when the Kirov came to England for the first time. And fortunately for me, my cousin Peter Jonas was then the head of the English National Opera, and he therefore ran the Coliseum. And the Kirov was at the Coliseum, so I was able to get tickets when nobody else could. And Farouk Ruzimatov was an unforgettable, ecstatic. All these years later, I'm still in ecstasy. So, BAFTA, as Prince Philip would have said, bugger BAFTA, to be naughty. And now, to answer the question, I very seldom see films nowadays. I'm too busy. I don't have the time to go and see films. Sorry, it's true. But the film I would see if I had to choose a film to see would be All Quiet on the Western Front, which I saw the original and I read the book by Erich Maria Remarque, who was a German anti-war novelist who, in I think it was about 1926 or 28, wrote All Quiet on the Western Front, originally in German, then it was published in English. And he was ultimately booted out by the Nazis. Goebbels said that the name Remarque was the absolute opposite of a Jewish name, and that he was basically Jewish. Well, he wasn't Jewish. He was originally of French extraction. And he ended up in America, and he married Paulette Goddard, who was a famous movie star and had been married to Charlie Chaplin. And she, interestingly enough, was Jewish. So that's the film I would see. There's a remake of it, which I understand is very good. But the truth is, I'm too busy. And quite frankly, I'm at this age where I don't want to see anything upsetting if I don't have to. Life is sufficiently upsetting and onerous as it is without inviting in additional pain. So I hope that answers the question. Beth O'Toole says, my mother-in-law marched behind the coffin at Diana's funeral, as Diana was a patron of a charity she worked for. When Charles and the boys went under an arch out of the camera's views, he hugged both boys. Beth O'Toole, thank you so much for that. You know, I have always maintained, because I was told it by people who knew them very well, that Charles was as good, if not better, a parent than Diana. Because although she spoiled them and indulged them, and gave them a lot of love, she didn't give them enough discipline. Well, Charles was not the greatest disciplinarian either, but they did expect to not be able to get away with too much nonsense with him. Although, of course, once Diana died and they had that stick to beat him over the head with, they managed to do it. Both boys. Not only Harry and William. And in fact, when they were growing up, William was worse than Harry. I just make that point for what it's worth. And the idea that Charles was never affectionate, well, that's ludicrous. I mean, there's that famous photograph of Diana greeting the children on Britannia with her open arms and running towards them. Charles was right behind and hugged them as well, but those pictures weren't published. And of course, in his book, Going Spare, the spare one, you know, the one who's got a few screws loose, does make the point that Charles isn't exactly a great hugger. Well, since Meghan spends her whole life smothering everybody with how wonderful she's, as she then plunges her claws into them and controls and manipulates them, I think I'd sooner take Charles and Meghan. Le crafty old cat, Doris, says. Oh, goodness. South Park, a parody? I thought I was watching a documentary. I knew I was watching a documentary. I couldn't agree more. More true to life than all those 6 hours of drivel I didn't sit through. How do you know, well, how much drivel it is? I know how you know, because you're sensible and you saved yourself the trouble. My only complaint is that Doria Ragbag wasn't in it, handing out bags of sherbet to the local community. Oh, is that the latest name for grass? Sherbet? Oh. Because, if I recall, and I could be wrong, Meghan had bags of grass at her wedding to Trevor. And Mama used to be generous with giving grass to people. Let me put it that way. Because I certainly wouldn't want to accuse her of having ever been a drug dealer. No, that I wouldn't want to do. Absolutely not. South Park hit the nail on the head. Brilliantly. Everybody's saying it. I bet it wins an award. Let's wait and see. But I bet it does. And I'm not a betting woman normally. Jennifer Stoneley says, I am no longer shocked by anything I hear about M&H. I just hope that if they do come to the King's coronation, that they show the respect that this occasion requires. They surely must understand that to act in any other way will make them even more unpopular. Lady C, Do you think that they care what any of us think? Do you think that they enjoy hurting people? Keep up this conversation. I, along with many others, find this subject sad but still interesting. Well, Jennifer Stoneley, thanks for the question. Thanks for the observation. I find the whole thing deeply regrettable. I have to say, I waver between absolute disgust and thinking, please spare me. I don't want to have to even think about this for a second, much less address it. And realizing that we are actually living through the actual evocation of an ancient Greek tragedy in real time. And so, yes, it does have value. It has merit. It has moral purpose. Do I think that they will conduct themselves with a degree of decorum if they come? I think they'll try to steal the thunder and limelight whenever they can. Well, she's going to be so upset that Pa and not H is being crowned king. It's going to be one left tear, left eye. 1, 2, 3. Wow, pop it out. But if you compare the way they conducted themselves at the Queen's Jubilee with how they would hopefully conduct themselves at the King's coronation, they will pass muster to those who think, well, they're a part of the furniture, so let's just have them around. I mean, there being no doubt about it. If they come, they will be just tolerated. My understanding is that they're seriously worried about coming because they know they're going to be booed. And they don't want the public humiliation because they don't want to have it affect their earning capacity, which I think some of us may realize has been sinking like a stone. Or actually, it's been sinking the way Meghan's baby bump did on at least one occasion, diving between the knees. I'd love to know how she managed that miracle, because, I mean, I used to believe that babies were solidly in the tum-tum, so to speak, in the abdominal area, to be not too delicate, and that they were not free to roam. But we all know Meghan's unique, and she has great attributes that ordinary human beings don't have. And so maybe she allowed the fetus to take a deep dive. Andrew J. Mundell says, the two of them are simply trouble. Don't you agree, Lady C? Yes, I do. I think they are trouble. I think they're troubled, and I think they're troubling. I regrettably have had enough people in my life who were trouble to know that trouble is always trouble. I had to deal with a fraudster once who was renting a house. And I remember saying to the estate agent, oh, I don't think we should let her have the house because her financials don't add up. She can't afford the house. And he said, oh, but you know, says she's a Rothschild. Well, of course, the name Rothschild is, I mean, a commonplace in Central and East and Middle Europe and even Western Europe. And anyway, it turned out and I said to Jamie, who was the agent, I said, Jamie, there are two sorts of people in this world. The first sort, no matter what happens, everything turns out all right. The second, no matter what happens, everything's always trouble. I said, people like that are trouble, and I sense she's going to be trouble. Didn't she turn out to be trouble? It took 9 months to get rid of her. She never paid a penny rent. She damaged the house. She left peremptorily. There are various court judgments against her that are now worth several £100,000. And did we ever see a penny? Not a penny. So that was one of my introductions to trouble. There have been many others. With my mother, sooner or later, everything went belly up. My ex-husband, no matter what it was always going to flop. Harry and Meghan, no matter what happens, it's always going to turn out badly. Not only for us, but for them. Do I think they're trouble? Yes, I do. Do I think there's hope? I wouldn't bank on it. Let me put it that way. I think troublesome, troubled people are trouble because that is their nature. And I'm afraid I don't think you can change your nature, although with enough motivation on your part to deal with it and overcome its negative aspects, you can. That's what organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, that's what they're for. So that people can get on top of the destructive or negative aspects of their nature. And if they don't want to, they are walking disasters. And let's face facts, Harry and Meghan are walking disasters. Pauline Morehouse says, I believe that Doria was the only person Meghan wanted at her wedding. She certainly didn't want Samantha's daughter there. The visuals were meant to show a black woman on her own, facing a sea of white people. She must have been so disappointed when Charles offered to take her to the altar. She couldn't refuse, but I bet she wanted to walk down alone with Commonwealth imagery on her train. To me, she did not intend being a part of the family firm. She wanted to stand out as an independent, powerful young woman. We fell for it, didn't we? We all admired Doria, but her lonely presence ensured the world knew Meghan was mixed race. Pauline Morehouse, that's a very interesting commentary that you have made. I understand that the king offered to walk her down the aisle the whole way, and she said, no, and allowed him to do it for half. Certainly her father believes that she never intended him to be there. He never got an invitation. Now, That should tell you something. I don't think she wanted the rest of her family there, whether they were black or white, because she didn't want them, A, stealing attention from her, and B, exposing her false narrative, because Meghan had a false narrative. Meghan led Harry to believe that she was this conqueror of deprivation, and that she had womanfully, like Boadicea, charging in her chariot against the Romans. She was charging in to change the world for the better, $1 bill at a time. But she never specified that part of it, did she? She certainly didn't want Samantha's daughter there, because she was offered by the palace, who wanted her to have more family there. She could have had the Markles, the Johnsons, Ashley. She didn't want any of them there, and I agree with Samantha. I said it in my book, Meghan and Harry, the real story, before I ever spoke to Samantha, that I was of the opinion of Meghan's conduct, that she had to keep her family away from the royals, because she didn't want them spilling the beans. That's what happens when you're a phony and you have a false narrative and you tell a whole heap of lies to a dupe and a Dumbo who you can dupe into falling in love with you and marrying you. And then you have to spend the rest of your time putting out the fires that crop up, because they are the shining light of truth. And the one thing you can't afford to have overpower you is the truth. But it's happening nevertheless. Isn't it wonderful how the truth ultimately does prevail? I think Meghan positioned herself brilliantly. I think remember, she's a creature of Hollywood. She would have seen, do you remember Maria in The Sound of Music, walking up the aisle on her own? I think Meghan wanted her Maria moment, and she got it. It's all about me. Always was, always gonna be. Why do I have to share anything? I'm certainly not sharing the limelight unless I absolutely have to. I mean, why would I do that? I mean, honestly. Nobody else counts in the world but me. Of course, I dupe people into thinking they count when I need to use them and exploit them and turn on the charm, but otherwise, blow them off. The way I slap them once, slap them twice, slap them again, just slap them out of existence. But the interesting thing is that Meghan, having realized that the colour card was what was going to further her ambitions, and she hoped lead her to a fruitful and successful outcome as the most popular woman on earth and one of the richest, was playing the colour card, notwithstanding the fact that all the evidence suggests that Meghan despises and loathes being mixed race. Oh dear, So self-hatred really is not a pretty thing to have to witness, much less live with. Laurie Rowland says, she is very fertile for an older woman. Not as fertile as me, my dear. Not as fertile as me. I am absolutely pregnant with possibilities. Is this high enough, shades of Meghan? I mean, I know that baby bumps usually are much lower down, but Meghan often wore hers in her rib cage, and I don't see why I shouldn't as well, because otherwise I'm going to have to stand up, and I can't be bothered to stand up. So here we go. May I continue? It's naughty girl, interrupting yourself. She is very fertile for an older woman. Well, I'm even older than she is, and look at me, I'm about to burst. How many times has she been pregnant in the last 4 years? I realize there have been rare cases of even a 50-year-old having a baby. I'm thinking she needs to be studied and written up in medical books. Oh, wait, with today's woke losties, if you think it or feel it, it should be, then it is. Well, not only am I pregnant with quintuplets at the age of 73, but I am going to identify as a billionairess, and I'm going to go into the bank and demand a loan at going rate plus 3% of $500 million. And they better take me at my word. Otherwise, I'm going to have to scream that they're prejudiced. They're prejudiced. So, well, according to her, Meghan was pregnant as soon as she got married, remember? She was married in May, and by August she was pregnant, and by October she was showing. I mean, amazing that this woman is so obvious in every way possible, that she was even baby bumping at 2 months pregnant, because remember, in Australia she was already showing. 2 months pregnant, and the fetus is the size of a fingernail or a penny or whatever, but not with Meghan. It was just showing, and by the time she had come back to England for the December, so August, September, October, November, December, 4 months, she was at least as big as this. Oh, and let's clutch it to make sure, everybody knows that I'm pregnant. Oh, yes, pregnant. So, there we have it. Meghan is extremely fertile. Pregnant with Archie. Presumably, Harry only needed to unfurl the damaged todger for it to do its work, and she was duly fertilized and then began to expand exponentially. Rather like a very good lie expands exponentially. It just has a life of its own. Not that I'm for a second implying that she was lying. Not at all. That I would never do. But we all know that nothing grows as quickly as a good lie. And her baby bump grew as quickly as a good lie. Quicker, if it's possible. No, it's not, because lies usually grow rather more quickly than the truth. Then, when she needed to, she had a miscarriage. And then, the month later, she was pregnant again. And then, out popped Lily. Oh! This woman is so wonderful, so extraordinary, so unique. I think we shouldn't just have her as a duchess. I think she should be made into a goddess. Certainly, the head of a cult. And I don't want any funny comments playing upon the word cult and the substitution of letters like cunning. Okay. Unless, of course, you want to send them in which case I will be very happy to laugh with you, because I have received some already. That one of which was, let's just decide upon the fact that Meghan is cunning. Nothing to do with being a hunter. Susan Appleton says, Dear Lady C, what do you think about the latest that Diana's butler is determined to share untold secrets to William and Harry because they need to know in case he does not recover from his cancer? Oh, another attention-seeking bore. You know, the Paul Burrells and Meghan Markles of this world give people on the make a very poor name, because loads of people come from nothing and achieve a lot, or move up in the world and are a credit to themselves. I'm afraid Paul Burrell and Meghan Markle are not in that category. If Burrell wants to inform William and Harry of anything, he only needs to sit in front of a camera and tell them everything and hand it over to them. He doesn't need to do it via the public. He doesn't even need to do it while he's alive. He can leave it for them, and if they then don't want, should he die, to look at it, they don't. But if they do, they do. But this is a way of wangling his way back in. I don't think he's going to succeed, because Harry rightly despises him, as does William, even though Harry has emulated him, because Burrell betrayed Diana's secrets. Harry has betrayed his family's secrets. Amazing. He doesn't look a thing like Burrell. Just as well, otherwise people would be asking, who's the real daddy? Because they have so much in common. I think that should give you some inkling as to how I feel about Burrell, who I had to appear on something on Piers Morgan, and they said he was going to be on. I said I don't want to there with him, and they said, please, please, please. I said, okay, fine. As long as he doesn't speak to me, we're not in the same room, and I need to be seated in front of him because I don't want to have to look at him. So they said yes to everything. And Piers very naughtily said, once the cameras were rolling, aren't you going to speak to Paul, Lady C? So I said, no, or words to that effect. I don't remember what I said. But anyway, Piers finally forced out an, I suppose, hello sort of thing out of me. And at the end of the show, Burrell bolted until I had been escorted out of the room. Such a jerk. I'm afraid I do not condone treachery under any circumstances. And once you've shown yourself to be treacherous, as far as I'm concerned, I've got the message. Colby says, can you explain what it means to be removed from the Commonwealth Trust, as Harry and Meghan were, and what the Commonwealth Trust is? Thank you. Well, the Queen's Commonwealth Trust is a charity which was founded in 2018 to support young people between the ages of 18 and 35 across the Commonwealth. The focus is on social entrepreneurs who have founded organizations which address problems within their communities. Queen Elizabeth II was the charity's patron and its effective founder. She made Harry and Meghan president and vice president. This was going to be their platform for doing good. This was going to be Miss, I'm a woman of colour and I'm playing the colour card for all it's worth, Duchess of Sussex, using her colour for the benefit of the hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people who are in the Commonwealth, who are people of colour. Oh dear, where did poor Aunt Lilibet fall down a flat? I can tell you where. She reckoned without Meghan needing money. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to do it. If I'm not being paid, I'm not going to do it. It's as simple as that. I'm just not going to do it. Oh dear, oh dear. The poor Queen. There she was, thinking and hoping that Harry and Meghan, her beloved grandson Harry, would actually appreciate and relish the opportunity she was giving them. And that Meghan, being a proud, confident woman of colour, would actually be able to do something for her own kind, except her own kind weren't paying. And so nothing was done of any consequence. And they were stripped of those roles as well. My understanding is that the Queen was really very upset and disappointed because the Commonwealth was one of her great prides and she regarded it as one of her finest lifetime achievements. And they just kicked sand in her face, as they've been doing with everybody else. Lynn Collingham says, I've heard a rumour that the 13 million anonymously donated to the Archewell, or Archewell, however they're pronouncing it today, foundation by a third party was in fact part of the money Harry was paid for that fictional book. if this is true, then it would suggest that it is a tax evasion. Have you heard anything about this rumor? Any insight you have into this would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Yes, I have heard, and I've actually indicated in previous videos that 10 of that 13 million which was donated, 13 million wasn't, 10 million was. The donation is for 10 million and it's anonymous. And I have indicated that there is the strongest suspicion that the donation is effectively a way of tax avoidance, not tax evasion. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance isn't. I actually, if I recall correctly, went to some lengths explaining how Harry and Meghan had set up their various companies so that they would be able to take full benefit from Delaware's user-friendly lack of laws and lack of regulation and lack of policing to, I don't want to say wash the money, but because what they've done is not illegal. It's resourceful. It's clever. There's no doubt that Meghan is clever. People don't want to acknowledge that she's clever, but she is clever. I mean, you don't start out as the overprivileged daughter of a man earning $200,000 per annum and end up batting with billionaires. And batting is just one of the many activities I'm sure that she does. But she's very comprehensive in her pursuits with billionairehood. And she's clever. And if she takes advantage of the opportunities, as long as they're lawful, let her do it. But let's call her out on her rank hypocrisy when she tries to pose as a humanitarian. And while we're about it, let's call him out on it as well, because it's their foundation, their organization, their companies, not just hers. Tammy with a Y says, has anyone heard from the Harkles as of late? The quiet in Montecito is unusual. I have this growing fear something terrible could happen. I feel Harry is very unstable emotionally. How to word this? If Meghan has begun her descent, meaning she's looking for her way out, Harry has put himself in a terrible predicament. The things he professes in Spare and elsewhere could be detrimental and used against him in a custody battle over the children. Couldn't agree more. I see this getting truly ugly. It could. I'm almost afraid to say this out loud, but my fear is this. We see it in the headlines all the time where someone takes his or herself along with the whole family out of the picture. The fear or threat of losing Meghan and his children could push Harry into a spiral he can't pull himself out of. I truly hope Harry is seeing a psychiatrist, and a good one. Let's face it, Harry is in an abusive, unstable relationship. Well, that's your opinion. And I'm saying that for legal reasons, he's effectively cut himself off from all those that truly love and want him. She's made damn sure of that. Not that his family won't forgive. I feel they will. Let's not hold our breath there. I'll repeat that. I hope not that his family won't forgive what he's done, but that road back to them will be extremely difficult, if not impossible. His solitude must be absolutely deafening. I use the word isolation, my dear, rather than solitude. Imagine being Harry right now. He's destroyed absolutely everything, everything for her. She and those children are Harry's dream come true. There I would agree. All he's ever hoped for, I agree with that. When he wakes up, and he will, then the realization of what he's done finally slaps him in the face. I fear the consequences of Meghan's destructive, narcissistic narrative will destroy them all. Big block capitals. I don't feel Harry is strong enough to cope. Well, Tammy, that is very heavy hitting, and I've read it out. Not that and I need to say this for legal reasons, necessarily agree with it, but I have read it out because my information is that the German relations agree with this. So you are espousing a theory which some of his relations have already been espousing, and you must not have seen it, but I have indicated this in previous episodes. God forbid is all I can say. One doesn't hope for any such thing. But thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. If it's God's will, it will happen. It's not for us to do anything except hope and pray that the outcome is definitely nothing as tragic or unsavory as that. But the German family fears that is the outcome. And if Meghan and Harry were getting separated or divorced, and the rumors are deafening, I would hope that she bears that in mind. Will she? Will she be able to? This is a woman who discarded the father who literally bankrupted himself for her and gave her 36 years of love and unfailing support, and hasn't not only looked back since, but set out to destroy his reputation by various means, one of which was through People magazine. This is somebody who is ruthless. This is somebody whose conduct tells me that she is right up there with all the heartless creatures of history. Am I wrong? Well, I would love to be proven wrong by her. Not in a court of law, out of a court of law. Maybe getting in touch with Daddy. Maybe writing a proper letter to Daddy instead of the end of relationship letter that she wrote and acknowledged that she wrote it as an end of relationship letter. All of this is so supremely troubling and distasteful. But I suppose ghoulishly fascinating at the same time. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of interest to you. May I ask you, if it has, to please send in questions and comments, because this really cannot be done without you. I need your input to know what I need to address. Okay? Thank you so much. And may I also ask you to press the notification bell. I'm forgetting what they are. Like, share, subscribe. I forget what they are. Sorry. I mean, you wouldn't imagine, having said them as many times as I have, that I've forgotten them, but oh dear. Knock, knock. Is anybody there? Maybe not. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.